Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing the MLP Season 4 episode, Rainbow Falls, of the show. So, if this is your first time joining us for an Equine Episode Examination, or watching us, welcome. We record this every Tuesday around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard, soon to be Eastern Daylight Time, I believe. This weekend. Yay. Not really yay. So we record this live at CinemaQuestria.com. So if you want to join the discussion, stop on by the website and the chat on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to discuss the episode, give our thoughts on it, analyze it a little bit. I guess pretty much have a group discussion on what we liked, what we didn't like about the episode, starting kind of more general things, story, stuff like that, and then working our way to more specific items as we go along. So yeah, got a lot to talk today, so won't bore much more with introductions. So now I know we have a lot of opinions on this episode. Going into today's Tripoli. But just to start, without going into any specifics about thing or starting the discussion up too much, what's everyone's just initial thoughts on the episode overall? Feel free.
I was waiting for Matt to go first, but if he's going to remain silent, I think I'm just going to sum my thoughts and feelings up into just one word. That's it.
I suppose I don't like this episode very much at all.
Oh, this is great.
Personal reasons.
No!
and there's written reasons for it, but there's writing reasons for it. But ultimately, when the chips are down, I'll say this: there are ideas in this episode that are fine. The execution is wishy-washy at best and downright malcontent and malicious at worst. I don't think that was necessarily the intention, and I certainly don't believe that. I mean, Corey Powell showed that she definitely can do some good writing when she did the Scootaloo episode. I can't remember the name of the title of it off the top of my head right now, but I'm certainly not going to lay into the writer, because the writer has shown that she can write pretty good episodes. It's just one of those episodes that just didn't work for me, and I find the message, what I take from the message from the episode is kind of insulting, particularly to people that aren't necessarily athletically gifted. And as someone that isn't himself but has always been known to be a very hard trier, I find that kind of an upsetting thing for the show to peddle, to be brutally honest, especially for a show of children. And it rubs me up the wrong way pretty hard. But yeah, that's pretty much it really from me. I don't want to go too negative because it's just not my style.
So going to the other end of the spectrum with me, when I originally watched this episode, I really loved this episode. It was one of my favorites at the time, and I don't know, I came out of it feeling really good, and I really liked and really enjoyed the episode and sort of the story and kind of what it did with the story with it. And I rewatched it again last night, kind of going into it with, okay, obviously a lot of people dislike this episode for varying reasons, and I kind of go in and see if I can take any of that out of it. Can I be negative towards this episode? Can I kind of agree with any of the points that I've seen thrown at the episode in the past? And I came out of it feeling the exact same way that I had the first time I'd watched it. I really like this episode, and I know obviously I'm going kind of against the general consensus of it here, but and we'll dive more into this as we get into here, but really, I still, even after all these years and after everything I've heard about this episode, watching it again, and I haven't watched it in a while, watching it again, I don't know, I still, for whatever reason, really like the episode and what it tries to do and how it executes it. So Yeah, Mr. Bam kind of like got the three ends of the spectrum here with it. But yeah, I mean, I understand most of the complaints I see under. Like, I understand what the complaints are. They're not like not completely not understand, but I just don't agree with them. Anyway, now that we're done with our initial thoughts, we can actually get into the discussion of the episode itself. So as Matt mentioned, this episode was written by Corey Powell, who wrote a couple episodes before, most namely Sleepless in Ponyville. Still one of my favorite episodes, and that was the first episode I believe that she had written for the show. And wrote this one, and I don't have the document that Matt made up. But I can't remember if there's any other ones that she had written. I can pull it up really quick, just so we can get that out of the way. Corey Powell. Also, stop jumping around. Oh my gosh, come on, Google. Also, Just for Sidekicks was the other one, as well as later this season, Inspiration Manifestation at the end of this season, which we'll obviously be getting to later. So that's the ones that she wrote. So, starting with the story discussion and the overall just writing of the episode. Any points anyone wants to start out with that?
Well, let's see what we have here. What did I do with my little thing here? So we basically have a qualification round for the Equestria Games, and as far as like the actual writing for the particular episode is, I can kind of understand where the situation of the everything comes from, especially with the Ponyville team and the Cloudsville team. This is kind of like what what real life sports teams often do, and I understand it's for a children's show, but I'm kind of getting to the feeling that a situation is that not only did they deliberately want Rainbow Dash for a more talented flyer in their opinion, but it was also mainly possibly a deliberate test of character on Spitfire's part. I will admit that she probably went about it in a rather mean-spirited way, possibly, in terms of like, hey, if you're willing to ditch your Ponyville friends to come hang with us, do you really want to be part of the actual Wonderbolts in terms of that sort of camaraderie? I will admit that I do feel it's a dick move on Spitfire's part to Yes, Spitfire's part.
I come in right when you say that. Hello, folks. Chase Smith here.
Yeah, I knew that would have been misunderstood. I was trying to correct myself, but then he interjected. I will admit it was a possible dick move on Spitfire's move, for not actually telling Soren about the whole thing and saying, hey, we're gonna offer Rainbow Dash a spot here on the Cloudsdale team, on the off chance you can't, on the off chance that you can't, recover in time. But the fact that they didn't even talk to him about it, the fact that they didn't even come visit him while he was laid up in the hospital or laid out in the hospital, that just kind of stinks, really.
Yeah, and we're not getting too much into the character discussion. I mean, it really does give you a little insight into how the Wonderbolts currently kind of are in terms of that. And that's something I was kind of getting to when we get to the character discussion as well. But yeah, it kind of gives you some insight into their organization.
Yeah, and I wasn't meaning to go into like character.
No, I know, I'm just yeah, agreeing with you there. Yeah. Really, I mean, personally, the reasons I really like this episode, and I tried to think about this while I was watching it last night, and try and put into words kind of why, maybe to best explain why. I mean, it's really just a great challenge to Rainbow's character and her element, like most of the other key episodes are in this season, and it has a lot of varying kind of lessons and life things in it about, people who you look up to and how your heroes might have flaws. They might not be the people that you think they are. and a lot of times you might even be able to make things better than your heroes, or be better than heroes, or make things better, or help them out even. It also has good messages throughout about friendship and teamwork, and again, just like how we had in the Daring Do episode, sort of like how putting your hero up on a pedestal, that they're perfect, and then you realize, well, maybe they aren't. Maybe that's not the group that you thought they were, and maybe you don't want to be a part of them now because of that. They're all kind of very real life lessons that Rainbow Dash kind of has to go through here, and she really struggles with it because of her past, and and they're her heroes, and she's always wanted to be a Wonderbolt, and obviously that kind of leads to the whole struggle of the episode, and follows the whole pattern of all the rest of the key episodes of it as well.
Anyway, oh, never mind.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was just going to ask, how much did I miss?
Not much. Introductions, initial thoughts. That was about it.
That's it. Yeah.
I missed Matt's initial little sayings that this episode was bad or whatever.
He really didn't go into too much detail on that, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I also like how this episode it's just a nice kind of follow-up to Wonderbolt's Academy, and kind of continues this Rainbow Dash Wonderbolt story that sort of started with that in a way, and continues through multiple episodes into the next few seasons as we kind of follow her journey to kind of obtaining one of her goals. And so it's a nice follow-up to that in a lot of ways, both in the characters, like, Bulk Biceps playing a main part of it, the Wonderbolts recognizing Rainbow's talents directly in it, and everything that she showed at the Academy. Spitfire even mentions seeing greatness in Rainbow Dash at the Academy at the end of the episode, where she's kind of like admitting she was wrong, and learning from Rainbow Dash, saying, we saw greatness in the Academy there, and we saw it here as well. I just love the episode's continuity, and how a lot of the conflict and story in it is pretty much continuing right off of the previous Wonderbolts episode there as well. And it provides a nice kind of conflict, I guess, for Rainbow Dash, again, choosing between flying with her heroes or flying with her friends. And it's a question that, in a lot of ways, doesn't really have an answer. And it really isn't until Rainbow Dash sees how the Wonderbolts are treating their friends, and how her friends are treating her, where she's sort of able to make that decision for herself, who she personally would rather be flying with there, even if it means not flying with her, with the Wonderbolts there. And she helps herself out, she helps the Wonderbolts out, and helps them learn a lesson, and eventually she does obviously get to fly with them eventually. Yeah, and I totally agree with Matt here that what the Wonderbolts did was really bad. I mean, they're not in any way in the right in this episode, and we see that multiple times, both with them trying to slyly coax Rainbow Dash to be on the Wonderbolts, and also just putting aside Soren, excuse me, and pretty much just trying to get Rainbow Dash over him. It speaks a lot of volumes about them as an organization, and it's something it's not really anything new or surprising. It's something we saw already starting in Wonderbolts Academy, when Rainbow Dash is first getting her first insight into the Wonderbolts outside of just looking up to them from afar as her idols or at a party or something like that, and actually getting to see how they operate as an organization. And it's really clear that they operate as an organization that puts team first rather than the individual. And that's something we see very, very directly in this episode about them. And in the end, once Rainbow Dash discovers that, once she discovers how easily they were able to just shove Soren aside and say, hey, you're great and all, Soren, but we have this opportunity to get a better flyer on our team and potentially win, with it. Rainbow Dash decides that's not who she is. That's not her element. She wants to, that's not being loyal, and she doesn't want to have any part of that. I mean, wouldn't really agree. It's trashing their characters. I mean, it's showing them as an organization having very flaws and very flawed morals about what they're doing. And personally, for me, I like that kind of message here, that your heroes aren't always going to be perfect. The Wonderbolts not necessarily are going to be this well-oiled machine that everyone's happy in and everyone's treating it. And I like it for a lot of ways. One way because it's realistic. And another way because it gives Rainbow Dash a chance in the future here, and we've seen this in future episodes, gives Rainbow Dash a chance to step in and change the organization herself, which I think is a lot better story-wise and a lot better for Rainbow Dash's character. And we've seen that both in Wonderbolts Academy, where she goes against the grain there, and we see that here as well, where she's going against them and saying that maybe all these heroes I've looked at my entire life, maybe they aren't the heroes for me, or maybe this isn't the organization I really want to be in, and then directly causing that change and teaching them a lot about loyalty and about friendship and teamwork that they didn't have before. I mean, I guess I understand if a lot of people really liked the Wonderbolts, and it does kind of tarnish who they were, but good.
The thing is with the Wonderbolts, I think I've always liked them as a concept, but obviously they'd never really been massively fully fleshed out, which, that's not a fault of the show. I mean, they got round to it eventually, sort of thing. I'm not gonna criticize the show for that at all, because there are plenty of other things that the show wanted to, show. Yeah. They wanted to obviously help with characterization and everything else, and the development of the characters, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, it's something that they hoped to get to, and they did, but. The thing is with this, I think in subsequent episodes they've skewed the Wonderbolts to be a little bit more militaristic, I think, which, to be honest, does make a lot more sense. But putting it in a more sports sort of environment, it just, like I say, I know it's a personal feeling that I have with it, and it's and don't get me wrong, if there's a couple of things that you can take out from the episode, like I say, they do paint the Wonderbolts to be mostly in the wrong, and that's fine. But I feel that whilst on Rainbow's end, the story wraps up reasonably well. I mean, it's not great in my opinion, but it's fine, and it does enough for Rainbow's character for me to sort of, for me to not think, okay. I mean, Rainbow is sort of a non-entity towards. I say a non-entity. That's a complete lie. She's more. I think she's a lot more wide-eyed in this episode, and that's understandable because obviously, she's, another step closer to, having her lifelong dream realized, and that's understandable, and that's also understandable why Rainbow would be a little clouded to necessarily the right judgment until sort of towards the end of the episode, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of what the development of her character is. My big issue is that we never really see Spitfire make it up to Soren, because I think that would have been a nice extra thing that the episode could have done, and it would have not really taken a great deal, and wouldn't have taken that much more out of the episode, because honestly, the things with Rainbow are kind of there, but the thing it's almost completely overshadowed to me by just how much it rubs me the wrong way, the way that the rest of the Wonderbolts treat Soren. And that you can turn around and say, I find it realistic, blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's perhaps part of the reason why I find it slightly annoying. With a children's show, realism is fine. In fact, it's great. I mean, this is why I like this show so much. I mean, you've got the realism of relationships between siblings. You have realistic family portrayals. I mean, last week, for example, we were talking about Pinky Apple Pie, where we see, a fairly realistic interpretation of family bickering, basically, and that's great. Sometimes you have to be very laser focused with the point you're trying to make, and the problem is with this episode, in my opinion, it kind of blurred the lines in certain areas, and it made interpretation of it sometimes to make the episode a lot weaker than it actually is. And obviously, because of my own personal experiences, I take the weaker experience. Now, I suppose one of the key things perhaps to make is, if I didn't have those experiences, say if I was a kid watching the episode, I'd probably find this episode to be fine. I don't know whether it would be one of my favourites. I don't think it is. There's not as much memorable moments to it to me than, say, other episodes with Rainbow and the Wonderbolts. But it would be fine. It would be a fine middle of the road episode that would be well worth watching. But because I've got that baggage, I think another good example of that is what's the Dave Polsky episode with Pinky, with the Pinky sense, Feeling Pinky King.
Mm-hmm.
That is an episode that kids will never get the other subtext of, like, religion and other bollocks that episode that some people take from it, and that's perhaps a secondary thing of having an audience that's older that's watching the show. And I suppose, really and truthfully, my issue is sometimes I don't separate what the show is trying to do for its target audience versus what it's doing necessarily for a secondary audience, if it's doing anything for that at all. And the thing is, though, even with that, I mean, even with me thinking of it, I just don't like the episode, because I just don't think they did it in a way that could have been. I feel that they could have done it in a better way. I'm not sure exactly how you'd do it in exactly a better way, but I certainly would start with, at the very least, more reconciliation with Soren at the end of the episode, and I think that would have been at least given the Ed take. Now, I know some people will probably turn around and say, well, that's why we like it, because it gives the episode that edge. But to me, I think it's just something that I'm just never going to enjoy. And, I think we all have our episodes of shows that we don't like. I mean, Rain's admitted to me that he doesn't like Howl's World Ends Well. I find that episode fine. I don't find it great, don't get me wrong. But I can go back and watch it and not have any real issue watching it. Whereas I always find it uncomfortable to watch this episode, and I probably always will.
In a lot of ways, Oswald's Endwell isn't as bad for me now as it was back then. I guess one of the reasons that episode was so, I didn't like it as much, especially when I first watched it, is because it was really our first Spike episode, focused on him, and I just didn't think it was the best first way.
In theory, have we had how much screen time have we had of the Wonderbolts before this episode?
Outside of Spitfire, not much.
Exactly. So you could almost say this was sort of like the first episode of the Wonderbolts, and it sort of suffers with perhaps the similar kind of. I mean, the only time we really see any kind of dialogue between Rainbow and the Wonderbolts was really in Best Night Ever.
Yeah.
I
will totally agree with you here on that point, and I think that is one of the episode's faults that I can recognize, is that the resolution, not really the resolution, but like you were saying, the whole thing with the resolution of the kind of Soren and Spitfire thing was really, really quick, because it wasn't really made to be the focus of the episode.
I don't even think it was really ever properly resolved. It was just more a case of you're still part of the team. Well, he was part of the team. It was the fact that he was just being dropped like a hot potato just because of injury. I mean, I can understand the other thing that confuses the issue is later on down the line they end up having Wonderbolt reserves. Now, did they have Wonderbolt reserves back at this point? Because if that's the case, why did they not take one of their reserves instead of Rainbow?
Because Rainbow was the strongest flyer. They were very focused on getting Rainbow.
But she wasn't one. But she wasn't a one. But she's not a Wonderbolt reserve. Doesn't matter how good a flyer she is. Doesn't matter. If she's not a reserve, she's not part of the Wonderbolts.
But the whole point was it wasn't
to be the Wonderbolts.
No, it isn't. The team was the Cloudsdale team. The team was specifically the Cloudsdale team. It just
happened.
It's normally
represent. But didn't the episode say that it was almost exclusively represented by Wonderbolts?
Yeah, but you don't have to be a Wonderbolt though. It's not a requirement.
Well, yeah, I guess not. But it's yeah. You see this? You see what I mean by the episode being muddly though?
It's personally sort of, no. They said that explicitly in the beginning of the episode about that. But really, I'm back on the point of Soren. I agree that was rushed. I don't think it was not concluded at all because Spitfire gives a very specific dialogue at the end about we were wrong. We weren't right to push Soren away. Then apologizes to Soren directly. So it's hit upon. It is gone by very quickly since it isn't the focus of the episode, and the episode more wants to focus on Rainbow Dash and them competing, and the team competing and qualifying at the end, and they use all that time for then. But I do think that's one of the episode's faults. Is I do think they didn't focus on that enough, since that technically was the moment that kind of wound up getting Rainbow Dash her key from Spitfire later in the episode. So I don't think they focused on that mode, or at least didn't give it the emotional weight that it really deserved.
I think Corey perhaps underestimated the importance of that part, that strand of the episode.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. I'll definitely agree there. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of Rainbow's character, in terms of development, we don't learn a great deal new so much. I think more a case of that she's impacting what she is learning onto the Wonderbolts, perhaps. I think that's more of a case here. Obviously we see that much more with episodes like Wonderbolts Academy, which I think is a considerably better episode than this, and certainly paints the Wonderbolts in a not a brilliant light, I'll say, but in a better light than this episode, that's for sure. I think making them more militaristic does at least shave some of the reasoning onto why they are like they are, because when it comes to things like that, everything has to be sort of just so, and everything has to be perfect basically, or as close to, and I can understand that. In fact, it would be quite interesting to see say Rarity having like perfectionist tendencies from like her designing, and having that sort of counteract with the Wonderbolts. That would be quite an interesting thing to see. That is something that would it would be a very unusual pairing, don't get me wrong, but I think that would be something that would be quite an interesting thing for them to sort of delve into, because sometimes you're not going to get the absolute best. I know that's what the Wonderbolts strive for, and that's what essentially what their sort of mantra is, that they want the best of the best, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with aiming to the very top. But you've got to sometimes realise that you don't need to trample on other ones that may not necessarily meet the grade, or are were considered to meet the grade, but then you find something better. That's when you've got to be a bit careful. And I just think this episode got it wrong in that regard. I don't, you don't have to agree, and I'm sure I'm sure a number of people won't. I'm sure there are people that do. Overall, I don't hate the episode. I don't hate any episode of this show. I just find this episode to have not really... It's just not worked for me. And I'm kind of rambling, because really and truthfully, I can't physically put it into words exactly what... It's just... I think we all have these things, but we just watch something, you just think to yourself, that didn't work. You can't necessarily put your finger exactly on why you don't think it works. You can mention things that you don't like, but yeah, and that's kind of where I am with this episode. And it does, like I say, because it robs me up the wrong way, it sort of it agitates me. And yeah, that's just where I'm at with this episode. And rewatching it has never really dulled that, or made me feel like the episode's any better because of perhaps looking from fresh eyes or from another perspective. It's just never worked for me, and I just don't think it ever will. And that's just how it is. But more power to people that do get enjoyment out of the episode, because I'm kind of envious, because I wish I'd like to enjoy every episode, but I just can't in the case of this one.
Yeah, we can get there when we get to the character discussion as well. Gosh, what did I have any other points that I had to make? I guess the only other thing I'd really written down was, of course, this being a key episode. This episode follows the whole episode format of the keys that was laid out first in Rarity Takes Manhattan a few episodes ago. So this episode kind of focuses on Rainbow's loyalty or devotion to helping her friends out, her element there, and who she had already previously committed to helping as well. So Rainbow Dash obviously struggles with this, since she is kind of being challenged here by her heroes, and she's obviously always wanted to fly with them, and this is kind of her big chance. But in the end, Rainbow kind of realizes her mistakes and makes up with her team, and kind of sees like that the other team isn't really her style, who she wants to be associated with, at least how they were acting at the time. At the same time, she teaches Spitfire and the Wonderbolts a lesson about loyalty, since they were so eager to, or not eager, but willing to ditch Soren for a better fighter at a moment's notice. Even after he was healed. That was kind of the turning point there. Is that not only are they ditching Soren and trying to get Rainbow Dash on to replace him. I mean, Soren could have flown. I mean, it's revealed at the end that he's better, and that's kind of where Rainbow's has her key moment there, once she realizes kind of the whole breadth of the situation there. I think that this is probably one of the more effective, in my eyes, key episodes, simply because maybe, and it pains me to say this, but I think I actually like it more as a key episode.
I'll give the episode this. It elicits a reaction, not necessarily always good, but it elicits a reaction, which is more than one or two of the other key episodes, which are kind of, to be honest, a bit more forgettable than, say, even this episode. So, I'll give it that. It certainly elicits a reaction.
But I mean, I'm even willing to say that I think I might even like this better as a key episode than the Applejack episode later in the season and the Fluttershy episode later in the season. Because this episode builds so much more on past events and continuity in terms of setting up the whole key thing. It isn't just like we're introducing, some new random characters like all the other episodes do, to do this whole key thing and for the characters to suddenly get their key from this person that they just met in the episode and taught it. Here, I think it's a lot more effective since they're using the Wonderbolts and the Spitfire as the key givers here. And that's one of the things I liked about it more than the other ones, is that use of the continuity, that use of existing characters to tell one of the key episode stories. Not to knock any of the other key episodes, but it's just one of those things where all these other key episodes are kind of like, we're going to just introduce these, new characters, and they're all kind of self-containing on that.
Another thing I should mention that was also on the line this episode, because of Ponyville didn't qualify, that would have. He's in the scene. He's going to be able to wave the flag in the games.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Let's move on to. We kind of dove in this a little bit already, but we can move on officially to the character discussions here as well. I guess the first one, since this is already mentioned the first time, we actually get to see Derpy again in this episode. So this is, if you're unfamiliar or don't remember at the time, Derpy hadn't really been in the series at all at this point since since the season 2, since after, directly kind of after that, the season 2 episode where she talked, all the way back then. She made kind of cameo appearances, really quick blink and you miss it ones in the backgrounds of the season 3 finale, that they kind of snuck in there. But she hadn't appeared at all since then, and then they kind of said it afterward that they were purposely holding her back until this episode, once they were kind of able to use her again. So it got a nice way to introduce her back into the series and have her play a little bigger part, and be able to kind of cheer on the Ponyville team there at the end. And of course, we see her a boat ton after this episode, of course. Like I mentioned earlier, it was nice also seeing a lot of ponies outside of the Wonderbolts too, recognizing Rainbow Dash for her accomplishments in the past. We see that when they first get to Rainbow Falls. There's other various background ponies as they're walking through, kind of saying, "Hey, look, it's Rainbow Dash and stuff." It's again just nice, makes the world seem more alive by people actually recognizing how kind of big Rainbow Dash is now in their world. It's not just because anything regarding Wonderbolts, but what she does with the main 6 as well. And of course, this episode also introduces a larger role for Bulk Biceps. Just kind of going through the character list here. With Bulk Biceps, so he of course is kind of a throwaway one-off gag character back in season 2, and then was giving a slightly bigger role in Wonderbolts Academy. And here he gets kind of a main, almost pseudo co-star role, along with Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash on the Ponyville team. So of course we've seen him quite a few times since then, but this was really the first time he's had a bigger speaking role and stuff in it.
He's still also pretty much. Sorry.
I'm going to say he's also voiced by a different person as well. In this particular episode, he was almost always voiced by Jason Deason in every one of his appearances thus far, until this episode, in which he was voiced by who was it?
Is it Michael Dobson?
Michael Dobson. Yeah.
Michael Dobson. Yeah.
I was just going to say that that there's one thing that I think that Bulk Bicep shares in common. He's basically famous in the same way that Little John is famous.
Okay. I want to hear him say that.
I now want a mashup of Bulk Biceps and Little John.
No, we need to re-edit that Bake a Cake song remix, but take out all the Little John and put in Bulk Biceps in this place. Yes. Turn down for yeah. Oh God. It was kind of funny though, seeing this kind of one-off joke character from a couple seasons ago being brought back as a slightly more important side character. We see that a lot more as the show goes on. Another key thing to note character-wise is, again, just the differences between the two teams here. With really Rainbow Dash's friends and her teammates are the only ones to visit her while she's in the hospital. Even we're talking about how the Wonderbolts didn't even visit Soren, as he says. They didn't even visit Rainbow Dash while she was in there. Again, just showing us how focused they are on team rather than any of the actual members of said team.
Well, they can't be focused on. If they were focused on team, they would. I'm sorry. That's counterproductive to that. I'm sorry. I disagree there.
disagree with what, that they're not focused on.
Well, if they were a team, they would still go and see Soren. I'm sorry. If he was a part of the team, they would go and visit him. That just shows them to be dicks, to be brutally honest to me. If he was a part of the team, they would at least go and visit him.
Okay, maybe I
Sorry,
need to
I
reword
disagree.
what I'm saying, because you're it's kind of missing the point of what I'm saying. They're not focused on any of the individuals on their team. Their main concern as a group, as an organization, is the well-being of said organization itself, not the individual members within that organization.
Basically, all they cared about was winning.
Pretty much, they care about the team's well-being, which is kind of shown to be
They
one of
only
their
care
group's
about
faults.
winning. That's basically all they show in the episode. I'm sorry. That is what it is. Winning at all costs, like I said.
Okay. Yep, and you're not really supposed to like them either, DM. I mean, that's kind of the point of it. One of the things I really liked character-wise about the episode was Fluttershy in it, and just how good of an actual teammate she was, as well, multiple times throughout the episode, and that kind of goes to show why Rainbow Dash in the end just wound up choosing to go with the Ponyville team. I really liked the line that she had while Rainbow Dash was in the hospital here, and she was just saying, if we qualify and make it all the way to the Equestria Games and get gold medals, we promise you can have ours, because we know how much a gold medal means to you. It's such a great friendship that they have, and of course they're very old friends between the two. I'm probably the oldest of any of the main six that have known each other. And just how much, Fluttershy was only thinking about Rainbow Dash's well-being. I know exactly what she wants, that she was only concerned about, getting that gold medal and winning at the time. That if they're, for some miraculous way, they were able to make it and get gold medals and stuff. And I like the way she said it, because she says it really quickly in this, rambling list. I guess it speaks a lot to her character, and I just really like that part of it. I don't know about Applejack. Applejack was just kind of cramming muffins and everything. Any open orifice gets a muffin.
Poor Derpy.
Which
Cram everywhere.
I was going to say, which can also, I guess, kind of be also kind of an analogy for the episode. Oh, God. Maybe he was off his roids at the time.
The only thing that did annoy me was the amount of bulk biceps and Fluttershy ship fix there were after this episode. Perhaps that annoyed me even more than the episode itself.
We had Flutter or Hulk a couple weeks ago. Oh, and this spawned Flutter Bulk.
Oh, God.
Even more disturbing, Flutter Hulk with bulk.
Oh, jeez.
Oh god, I saw that. Oh my god.
Do you call that? I guess we would call that Flutter Hulk Bulk.
Oh. Bulk Rager.
That sounds, yeah, I'm not going to say what that sounds like.
At least Applejack's not selling baked bads.
Focusing on more on Rainbow Dash as her characters, I think that's where the episode for me really shined. Was kind of again the challenge that this forced Rainbow Dash on, and kind of the struggle that she had to went to. And just like most of the other characters in the other key episodes, in Rarity's episode, it comes to the point where she's acting out of her element, and in a lot of ways. We saw that in Rarity's episode where she was challenged, and her element of generosity, and someone was taking advantage of that generosity, and to the point where she actually became very ungenerous towards her friends and kind of using them as like slave labor in a way to remake the dresses, and not being thankful for their generosity towards her. We see that again with Rainbow Dash in this episode, where for a lot of it she's really struggling to her loyalty to her friends, and it's more than just that she has to go with her friends because they're her friends, so you can't choose anything else. It's more that she had already made that commitment to the Ponyville team. If this would be a little different if it was she was presented with these two things at the same time and had it committed to each other, and then she it would be a little bit different of a choice here. But here at this point, she's already committed to helping the Ponyville team, and now she's faced with this opportunity to go with this other team, the better team, the Wonderbolts, the people she's wanted to fly with her whole life. And there's a point where, of course, she's kind of going between both of them and training with both of them, just because she just can't resist it. And then she's faced with that option of who she's going to go with and who she's going to be loyal to, and she just can't obviously can't deal with it. I mean, obviously the choice for her element should be going with being loyal to the people you already committed to, the people who are actually very supportive of you. But it gets to the point, of course, where she just can't make a choice at all, and just kind of fakes being sick until she actually figures out what the Wonderbolts are doing as well. And it really leads up to that big moment where she's kind of imparting that lesson onto the Wonderbolts, where she's like, I couldn't make a decision between the two teams, but I've finally come to the conclusion of the team I want to be competing with. And of course, Spitfire's like, oh, I'm glad you made the right choice. We'll love you, competing with us. And then of course, she says that she's going to compete with the Ponyville team, which really catches the Wonderbolts off guard. And then of course, Rainbow Dash kind of goes into the whole thing about, you might be a winning team, but you're not the kind of team I want to be a part of because of their actions and kind of how they treat those people in there. And it really speaks a lot to Rainbow Dash's character, and shows a lot of growth for her as a character as well, to be able to overcome those challenges. And this is one of probably the bigger challenges that any of the main sixes have gone in any of the key episodes. Again, because of that history she has with the Wonderbolts, and being having to stand up against them here. And it just really shows how far she's come as a character, and again building her character further here, and then also imparting maybe some of that character development onto the Wonderbolts going forward in future episodes as well. Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. I think they embellished his struggle with getting off the ground a little bit, and at the beginning of this episode, that was kind of a little contradictory to how we saw him in Wonderbolts Academy. I wouldn't say he was ever a good flyer at all in Wonderbolts Academy, but he could fly. But we see that improved by the end of the episode. I think they were just trying to juxtapose the training before and after, like they did, with Fluttershy. But I think they went a little too far down the dial and made him, when they show him not he wouldn't be able to get off the ground. They dialed that down a little too much. But by the end, he's flying again better than how he was in Wonderbolts Academy, when they're actually doing the relay there.
Bolt biceps exists just to piss off Scootaloo.
Oh boy, that poor chicken. But on that note, it was nice to see by the end both Bulk and Fluttershy had made great improvements through all that training from kind of how they were at the beginning, not just with flying, but carrying the coin or whatever it is they were passing. The horseshoe, was it? They were passing between each other during the aerial relay. Coming to the point where they were actually able to qualify and doing a good job on their own as well. And we can kind of see in future episodes, DM, how far up that, or back, I guess, that kind of ideology goes in the Wonderbolts when we get to Rarity Investigates in Season 5? Yeah, Season 5. Kind of going back to the old guard there, where, we have that whole mystery revolving around how, I forget his name, but whoever that old Wonderbolt was that was in that episode. And, of course, Rainbow Dash was really excited to be able to fly with him, and he was kind of the one that had sabotaged the whole thing to improve his own image. And the cool thing about that was, at the end of that episode, the Wonderbolts, once it's kind of revealed what he did, the Wonderbolts do stand up to him and immediately kick him out of the Wonderbolts for doing that. So again, kind of seeing the old guard and how things were, and then kind of seeing Rainbow Dash having that effect on the Wonderbolts going forward, and kind of internally beginning maybe to kind of change how they operate. Yeah, her loyalty to her town is at stake. But I don't like putting it like, I think it would be I still think it would be a different situation if we were talking about, well, is Rainbow Dash going to fly for Cloudsdale? Is she going to fly for Ponyville? It's still a hard choice to make for her. But at that point, I don't think any choice would be necessarily wrong, in terms of her being loyal to either. The issue here, and they set this up from the beginning, is that Rainbow Dash is already committed to flying for Ponyville and flying in the relay race, because the Ponyville is not going to qualify for that particular event, given they don't have enough Pegasi to fly. Obviously they have to kind of resort to asking Fluttershy and Bulk Biceps to do that. So she kind of has to be there to carry that event, and she's already committed to it, and that's kind of where the whole loyalty lies. It's more than just being loyal to your hometown. It's being loyal to your friends who you've already committed to helping, even if a better option for yourself personally comes up. Yeah, thanks, Raider. Wind Rider. It's been a while since I really need to rewatch that episode, because I love that whole noir feel of the episode. But I've started rewatching some of Season 5, but I've gotten sidetracked by other things, Zelda. But I love that episode.
Can I just say, can we all agree that Zelda is better than this episode?
I'm not gonna say either way, because we're two drastically different things.
To be fair, I think I know it's not a fair comparison, but it's better than this episode. Then again, there isn't much things that are better than Zelda right now. I can't believe I'd ever say that, because this is from someone that didn't really like Ocarina of Time. But anyway,
it's a great game. Anything else? I think I've gotten through everything that I had kind of taken notes on, story and character-wise. Is there anything else, any other points, story or character-wise, anyone wants to bring up for this, or any other characters that anyone has any points they want to make about besides the ones that we've talked about?
Twilight looked absolutely freaking ridiculous, but I love her.
Yeah, Twilight.
Well, her design was based off of like Lollipop Chainsaw or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, because since Tara voiced the main character in that game.
Honestly, if you close your eyes with that game, it just sounds like Twilight.
It's hilarious. I've seen clips of it. Yeah. Just dub some of those lines over some MLP episodes, make everything better. I will say Twilight kind of, in some ways, and I kind of wrote this down. In some ways, maybe, some ways not. But it's kind of, a lot of the ways in this episode, we see Twilight having kind of her first role, maybe, as the princess of friendship here. Because she's the one, she's shown throughout the entire episode, slowly, watching how Rainbow Dash is reacting and what Rainbow Dash is doing, and kind of figuring out that she's going back and forth between teams, and and sort of guiding her along the path towards what her decision's going to be throughout the episode. She doesn't ever help her really with the final, right, make her final decision or anything, but she's kind of there the whole episode as sort of like a guiding friendship mentor for Rainbow Dash in it.
Oh God, I've never watched Drawn Together.
I have no.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
I've heard the movie is particularly awful, but the TV show is an acquired taste.
Yes.
I mean, I've never seen it, so I can't comment.
In the best sense of the word. I have no desire to see it. It's not my kind of show.
It's a bit like a lot of Adult Swim shows to me, but to be fair,
Yeah.
it seems to be in that kind of bracket.
Or like Family Guy and stuff like that. It's just cartoons that are their whole shtick is kind of where it's a cartoon, but it's for adults. It's like, well, I don't like it goes back to the kind of the thing of maturity versus like different kinds of maturity. It's like you could call them mature shows, but in reality, they're very juvenile in terms of their humor.
Drawn
yeah,
Together.
I mean,
He said, Drawn Together, the only shit, if you watch it, it unsaid on the DVD, it's one of the Terror Strong say the F word. You were saying that.
No, I have got nothing to say to that.
Well, you were saying something before. Well, you were saying something before I spoke up.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, as far as I'm aware, the only thing I know about the Drawn Together movie was that it was made on a lot more on the cheap versus the TV show, which must be one of the few TV to movies where the budget actually decreased for the movie rather than increased.
Okay, well, if we're done with the characters and characterization, we can go to the voice acting. Is there anything for the voice acting that anyone wanted to point out that stuck out for them? I think Derby had the best voice in this episode.
That's
Say anything.
That's Scream.
I think that's the joke.
Yeah.
But they did give her that
Funny joke.
But they did give her that
I was
funny
thinking-
scream in that one
Well,
scene.
to be fair, this was the point where people were thinking that she was never going to speak much like Vinyl Scratch, so
Yeah.
she was never going to speak again. Of course, we
They
got
never
proven
s-
wrong.
Episode 100 happened.
I would say I was about to say, and she's probably never going to speak after that, but she did speak in the Legend of Everfree movie, though. I always forget
I think
that.
she will get the occasional line,
Yeah.
but it'll be like it's like dog treats. You'll get them now and again.
They're trying not to trying not to throw too many pandas at us.
Well, eating too many muffins can be bad for you, so just ease up on the muffins.
Yeah, I think Michael Dobson did a good job of Bulk kind of expanding his vocal repertoire from to, obviously having a lot more lines for it, and of course
Hey, could you imagine like season 2 Big Mac and Bulk Biceps, and hell, any season of Marble Pie having a conversation between the three of them? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Copy paste.
Hey, if this was Teen Titans Go, you just know there'd be an episode just with the three of them, with them just doing that. It worked for Waffles.
I want to see the three of them singing the Waffles song now. Yeah, it was nice hearing. It was nice.
Yep.
Yep. Oh God. Yeah, it was nice hearing, I guess, Fleetfoot. I think Ashley did a great job as Rainbow Dash, especially as we get to the kind of the climax of it, and you know the more emotional moments of the episode. Not really much else voice acting wise that I'd like to point at, specifically point out myself. Oh yeah, we get to hear Soren again, of course. Yeah. So we can go on to the humor of the episode. Be the next category to discuss here.
Let's see what we got here. So we got Pinkie Pie, just combining teleportation with cheerleading. And then speaking of cheerleading, we've also covered Twilight Sparkle's Lollipop Chainsaw reference. Both Biceps was just comedy gold practically on this one here.
Like the P is for Rainbow Dash. No, Rainbow Dash actually starts with an R. Oh.
To be fair, you can easily edit a P to look like an R. You only got to like draw a line out from the
just
sort
missing the
bit
line
in between, and it will easily look like an R. So it's not like it's a huge mistake.
Oh God. I like all the scenes of Bulk flexing his pecs. The one part where he's like bouncing a muffin on them.
Poor Derpy.
Oh God.
I can hear someone's playing Zelda. It's not me. I can tell you that now.
Yeah, that's me.
You can't fool us. I like I really like Fluttershy's line in this too, where right after Rainbow Dash gets, injured, where everyone thinks she's injured, she's like, "Don't worry, Rainbow Dash, we'll take care of you, or at least some pony will, like a medic or a doctor or nurse." I think Andrew Libben did some great job.
No, it's going to be Fluttershy in a nurse uniform, and I will certainly not be complaining.
Flutter medic, it's a thing.
To be honest, we need more Flutter Medic. It's just too adorable for me. I just can't stand it.
There's also going on Applejack stuffing muffins into people's mouth when they're at the in the hospital there. And Applejack said, "This will cure everything that ails you," and then proceeds to stuff a muffin down her throat. It's just like, Jesus.
I'll cure you. Yeah, I'll cure you, all right. By choking you.
See, speaking of the biceps, or the whatchamacallit, his pecs, I should say. We get to see Bulk biceps try to do wing push-ups, which goes about as well as you'd largely expect they would be. And then, of course, we got Rainbow Dash being, just drama queen when she's pretending to be injured. So
very. She might even give Rarity a run for her money.
And then even like, what was it? Pinkie Pie who was like saying that. Was it Pinkie that was basically saying that, look, we better go and whoever did this to you is gonna be really sorry about this. Or am I thinking of something else?
I also like on the muffin side when we finally get to the final action-packed relay where Ponyville's flying and they keep cutting through all the shots, the fast-paced shots of all the the characters flying and trying to get to the goal. I guess cuts to Applejack at one point and she's just there stuffing her face with a muffin, just not even caring.
Couple of meta examples actually. There was in the days leading up to the episode, the showrunners were tweeting teasy comments, including Megan McCarthy making a jab that she could predict the exact time on Saturday that the fandom would explode. And as per livestream chat archives and reaction videos with a test, she was right, because when Derpy appeared, the fandom practically went supernova.
I remember when we were watching Bro Agent Sumiko was watching it out of us, as obviously he saw Derpy before everybody in the chat did, so he calmly went 3, 2, 1, and then the chat explosion happened.
I say there was also the overlay when the hub was still known as the hub, leading to some suggestive innuendo when Rainbow was carrying Sora on her back with the making family fun. Actually, we got the whatchamacallit here. It's the link, for whatever reason, wasn't the shorter one. I don't know why they don't use the short links from Derpy Budo on this one, but there you go.
Making family is fun.
Yeah.
Rainbow is enjoying that far too much of that face there.
Pinkie Pie reacting upon learning that Ponyville probably won't qualify. She's just pointing to a humongous pile of pom-poms and like, what am I going to do with these now? And Applejack was like, what were you going to do with them beforehand?
Wait, she could sell them to the Cloudsdale team. To the Cloudsdale ponies. Like, hey, business opportunity, come on.
Anything else for the humor?
I loved how Twilight just didn't fall for Rainbow Dash's bullcrap, like, right from the very beginning.
Yeah, she wasn't going for that shit. Especially when she came in faking being sick, she's just like, oh, facepalm.
Should have had Applejack go up to her. Come on, you're an even worse liar than I am.
They should have done the thing where Rainbow Dash goes out behind her in the wheelchair. See, she's a fake. She can stand, and she throws them up into the air, and then figure out that no, she actually was injured.
That would have been funny on a horrible level, but it still would have been funny.
All I can think of now is in Austin Powers. It's like, that's not a woman, that's a man. And it actually was a woman. Oops.
or no, that was the one where he's trying to pull his Basil's mom, like grandmother's hair off or something. That was great. Why won't this wig come off? On the note of animation and visuals, we have this Rainbow Dash face when she's quoting Bulk Bicep. She's like, "It's gonna take more than good work and yas to win." And she makes this really derpy face there.
Looks like she's doing an impression. Looks like she's doing an impression of Scootaloo.
Matt, maybe they are actually related. Maybe they are sisters. We just need to edit this GIF so like an egg comes out of her butt. Like,
what came first, Scootaloo, Rainbow, or the egg?
Hey, this is one of the episodes where I also have to commend, us going to a new location. So we had, of course, never been to Rainbow Falls before this. So I thought it was really well designed, and of course, everything here pretty much has to be designed by scratch. It's not quite as big as some of the other locations we've gone to, but you got to appreciate the work that kind of goes into designing a new location for an episode versus just going to a location we've already been to.
I mean, it's a nice place, Rainbow Falls, but the road leading up to it, Rainbow Road, that you got to avoid the blue shells, man. It's just murder.
I always fall off the side. Oh yeah, I gotta love the old Go animation errors. Larson was just getting wasn't quite done yet.
It's basically blaming everything on. It's just basically blaming Larson. It's just because he's like it's the same logic as because I'm the goddamn Batman now. Basically, it's like oh, something I don't like's happening. It's Larson's fault.
He has become a living meme.
I still find it funny. He hasn't even written for the show for like getting close to 2 years, and he still goes to conventions.
Oh man. Yeah, Larson's a great
Larson
guy.
is the show now. He doesn't have to write for it. He's just assumed his soul into it.
No, Matt. Remember, Josh Haber is just his pseudonym.
I thought that was Scott Sonborn.
that one too.
I get so mixed up. He had so many. I know when he originally said that, he originally said that Scott, because he co-run the Cutie map with Scott.
Larson is secretly Lauren Faust. It's true. Okay, so got through all that. So no songs. So we had a couple episodes with quite a few episodes in a row with some songs, but we are given a break from this episode. But we do have a lot of musical score to go through here. A lot of really great stuff in the score for this episode. With it being a Wonderbolts episode, we get retreads of all of their motifs that we heard in the past, specifically from Wonderbolts Academy. We also get some new ones, particularly the Rainbow Falls theme, which we hear throughout this episode, that has been reprised again in future Wonderbolts episodes, including the one that we were just... Was that Rarity Investigates, or was that... I think it was Rarity Investigates, where the Wonderbolts are putting on their air show, and the air show music that they have in the background is the Rainbow Falls theme that we heard. So, got a couple things here. We'll start off with the beginning here. I believe this is a slow version to introduce us to the Rainbow Falls theme here, as we first arrive by train. Oops, hold on. I can't hear it myself. It would help if I could hear it.
I like trains.
I like trains. Okay, there we go. Now I'll be able to hear it. Here we go. So you'll recognize that as a more pumped up version in the air show and later seasons there. And we hear that also again at the end of this episode when they're actually doing the relay, that more pumped up version of it. But this is kind of a grandiose one that we see when we're first arriving there and we get the overview of Rainbow Falls itself. So now we get the team, this one here where we're introducing the teams, I believe, here. So that one started out with the Wonderbolts March, which we first heard in Wonderbolts Academy. It's very, very March-like, so it fit very well there. So we hear that at the beginning when they're walking, and that track ends with the Wonderbolts fanfare, which has been with the Wonderbolts for a while now. So that's kind of like the three main Wonderbolts themes that we have for the series now: the Wonderbolts March, the Wonderbolts fanfare, and that Rainbow Falls theme, which sort of turns into the air show theme later on in future seasons. Let's see what this next track is. We got some more marches. We got a lot of marches here, as in with most Wonderbolts episodes. There's that Wonderbolts march again there. Obviously, Rarity's saying something here. Their harpsichord in the background. So now we get to the part right before the first or second commercial break there, where Soren actually gets injured and falls in that nosedive. A little bit of the Wonderbolts fanfare there. So now we get to one of the bigger ones of here. This is the training montage music as Rainbow Dash is flying back and forth between training with the Wonderbolts and training with the Ponyville team. So a lot of this is kind of like a direct homage to Gonna Fly Now from the Rocky movie. As on the other side, we also have a reprise of a woodwind version of the Wonderbolts Academy March when we cut to the Ponyville team training. Big finish here. From there, we get to the more somber moment of the episode score, as Rainbow Dash is kind of faced with that decision of which team she wants to fly with, and is discussing it with Twilight. We start with the Wonderbolt's fanfare as Spitfire offers the position to Rainbow Dash. And we get a little somber piece here at the end. We've heard this in Games Ponies Play back in Season 3 and episodes before, since this episode as well. Let's see, so next, let me see. Let me see if this next track has anything in it. So next we get to the key moment track here, and this is when Rainbow Dash is in the hospital, being comforted by her friends. We get it's very kind of emotional score to begin with, as her friends are comforting her. Then after, of course, Soren, she kind of realizes that Soren is there and that they've come to visit him, and kind of the whole situation unravels for Rainbow Dash. We get the 6 Locks 6 Keys motif again that we heard when the box was first revealed, and we also heard in the previous key episode, Rarity Takes Manhattan, at the same moment when she had her rainbow moment with a rainbow eye gleam and whatnot. So we'll hear that, I believe, near the end of this track here. We start off here with a little Fluttershy theme for Fluttershy as she's talking to Rainbow Dash. And that's a theme that's been with Fluttershy for a while now. I'm not sure when the first episode that was, but... got that little emotional build up there as Rainbow Dash is kind of really touched by what Fluttershy says. And this little piano theme. We've heard this theme quite a few times in this series as well. I really love this. Really love this theme here. And here's the key theme. Again, helping to tie all those key episodes together. So finally, we get to the final track here. That will there's one more. There's the lesson motif. I'll play the very last track. It's just the lesson motif for Rainbow Dash that we've heard numerous times before. But, of course, that ends at that, too. And, of course, the episode ends with the key being revealed and having that rainbow shine on it. And, again, we get the 6 Locks 6 Keys motif for that. But the big track here, the longest track, is the one from the final climax and resolution of the episode. This builds up both with Rainbow Dash's choice that she makes, and then the final relay race for Ponyville to qualify. So we start out with a little bit more kind of emotional score, as Rainbow Dash is kind of stating her point and saying that she's going to fly with Ponyville. And then when you get to the relay scene, we get that Rainbow Falls theme that we had at the beginning of the episode here in the kind of the air show version of it. I believe at the end we also get a brief reprise of the Summer Sun Celebration fanfare in here. We'll start out with a march here. And there's that Wonderbolt's fanfare there. One of the piano lesson motifs. Little pause before Rainbow Dash says she's going to be competing with Ponyville for added dramatic effect. As we get to the resolution, get the Wonderbolts fanfare again. A little longer version of it. And here's that Rainbow Falls theme again, and that faster-paced airshow version. We also get this additional theme at the end here. I was incorrect. The Wonderbolts Airshow theme was actually from this past season, season 6, and the Rainbow Dash episode here. So here's the airshow version of that Rainbow Falls motif that we just heard. It has a little bit more drums and percussion in it here.
Mares and gentlecolts, fillies and foals of all ages, look to the skies and prepare to be awestruck by the incredible...
Just in case anyone was curious about it.
The Wonderbolts!
Here it is here. I think Matt's asleep.
I think he is too.
Good night, Matt. But yeah, so that's a little taste of kind of where that theme kind of evolves into as we get into season 6 here. So again, here those themes continue to be used. That was first introduced in this episode, so we hear that continue to be used in future episodes with a little bit more evolution of it there in that one. So, and that's all the score from this one. I really like the score for this episode. Again, you have a lot of the Wonderbolts music in it, so you have a lot of. It isn't like one of those episodes where it's a little less action or a little more slice of life, where it doesn't really amount itself to a lot of score other than a lot of incidental stuff. So we got a lot more very specific, very strong music and themes in here, as we do with most Wonderbolts episodes. So a lot of great stuff. I love the marches. I love kind of where they take the Rainbow Falls theme from the beginning, the version at the beginning, to what they have at the end there, as well. And yeah, that's something we forgot. I forgot there's griffins in this episode, isn't there? I completely forgot about that. I didn't even notice that when I rewatched. Really, the first time we've really seen them before, since Gilda, and that was about it. I completely forgot about that. So, what is there? Anyone else does anyone have anything else they want to say about the episode's theme and moral?
Pretty much the only moral I could offer is just pretty much the standard one I usually offer. Don't be a dick.
It fits very a lot more well with this episode than a lot of others. That's very much very fitting for this one. Yeah, I mean a lot of lessons pretty much focused around loyalty or not just loyalty but also where's the other word? Devotion as well, and kind of staying true to your word and staying true to your commitments. Also a lot of morals in here about teamwork and what it means to be a team. That it's not necessarily just focused on the team itself and winning all the time, but the members of that team are also important. So, and also some stuff about again with Rainbow Dash and her relationship kind of with the Wonderbolts, and that a lot of times the people you looked up to, the heroes you have, might have flaws. They might not be perfect. They might be dicks sometimes, and they might differ. They have different moral values. Or even maybe not even them as individuals, but them as an organization might have different moral values than you have, that you might have to take a second look and see if you really want to be part of them. And at this point, twice Rainbow Dash has pretty much said, I don't want to be a part of the Wonderbolts. And really the only reason that she has stuck on that path is because the Wonderbolts have at least been willing to change based on what Rainbow Dash has said to them. So it's nice to see her being able to impart that change on the organization itself. Favorite parts and any concerns? I think we've pretty much gone over most of this in terms of concerns for the episode.
Derby, yeah. Also, Twilight's lollipop chainsaw outfit, but that's just me.
Yes.
It was nice to see Derpy again, and it was nice to see her kind of get a brief moment of spotlight. I think it was like this was a good way to reintroduce her to the series. I liked how they went about that, where they need someone to replace Rainbow Dash. I mean, Derpy's kind of perfect because obviously she shouldn't be a little klutzy before, so she's not may necessarily be the best flyer for them to begin with. But it was just a nice little way. And it was cute seeing her, being so supportive of the team, and even getting in on that picture with the rest of the team at the last second, kind of saying, "Yep, she's back. We're able to use her again," and that's that. So it was a nice kind of little nod to that. Even if we're not going to call her by name, and even if for now she's not going to talk. For me, I mean, I know as we've discussed today, it's going to be a lot of disagreement on this point, but really my favorite part of the episode, outside of Derpy, was just present how the conflict that was presented to Rainbow Dash, and sort of what she went through in this. And again, like I said, it's one of my favorite key episodes because of just, again, how it uses that continuity with her relationship with the Wonderbolts, and showing her that, again, that, maybe this isn't the organization she thinks it is, and maybe it's not something she wants to be a part of as is. And then also showing us, the viewer, that, maybe Rainbow Dash is more important to the Wonderbolts than the Wonderbolts are to Rainbow Dash. And how maybe this character that we've seen the entire series looking up to her idols here and looking up to the Wonderbolts might actually be able to bring better change to them and their organization than the other way around, than them helping her in any way. And I like that, and I like the character development that Rainbow Dash goes through in this episode. Again, present it with putting her friends and her, the people who actually really care about her against the people that she really looks up to, and people that are her heroes, and kind of making her have that, have that choice for it. And again, I know people disagree, for whatever reason, but I really liked it. Yeah, Rainbow Dash has a certain way with words when she's talking about the moral there, Dark. But the gist of what she's saying is, yeah, as much as I love winning, I love being with those who, are actually treat me as a friend, and, being on a team that's friendly rather than just a team that's just 100% focused on winning. So, final thoughts, concluding thoughts on and feelings for the episode?
I really don't have anything really much to say outside of what I've already said. Personally, this was one of those episodes, it's okay, but it's not definitely one of my favorites. I feel it's probably one of the weaker key episodes, but that's just my personal opinion. Again,
personally, I understand. It's not like for the people who like Matt, who have some very harsh arguments against the episode, I understand kind of where they're coming from and a lot of their points that they're making. But I guess I just really disagree with them. I don't know how else to put it. I still, after rewatching this episode, I really tried to watch it from an eye of some of the points I've seen leveled against it, and I just couldn't get myself to feel that way. I don't know if I'm missing something that they're not, or if it is just basically personal experiences or something, but I really like what they did. I like what they did with the Wonderbolts. I understand that a lot of people, I'm not saying anyone here is, but I know that back when the episode premiered, I know a lot of people had problems with it simply because it kind of really it does make the Wonderbolts out to be jerks and have questionable morals, if they're going to so easily ditch Soren if the opportunity approaches itself for a better flyer. And I know there's a lot of people that probably might have a lot of affinity for the Wonderbolts, and this might have kind of tarnished their view of them that they had personally, and I guess I can understand that, but at the same point, I know Matt had said this as well, it's one of those things where we haven't really seen the Wonderbolts as a crew that much. We've seen in the first couple of seasons, we've seen them pretty much off duty most of the time, and they kind of seem they're an aerial flying group, and they fly, that, and Spitfire's kind of cool off duty. But then, of course, in Wonderbolts Academy, we get to see kind of a different side on the job of them, and see, Spitfire more as a drill sergeant mode, and see her, again, be focused on getting the tasks done. So when Rainbow Dash kind of explains the situation, after Lightning Dust's, over... what's the word I'm looking for? Lightning Dust isn't concerned that she almost, killed Rainbow Dash's friends with the tornado she made. She's just like, oh, I got the sky cleared really quick. And even Spitfire was really impressed by that, saying, wow, you guys, that's an Academy record. Not being concerned for that. And Rainbow Dash is completely turned off by that and leaves. And so we see a little bit more of that here. So I wouldn't say it's how they're acting is completely unprecedented anyway, at least from season 3 onward. I can understand why some people would be upset with that, but for me, I like it. I like having these characters that Rainbow Dash is looking up to have some pretty serious character flaws in them, both as individuals and as an organization. And I guess like to see that brought to light in this episode personally. I can understand people may not like them because maybe they like the Wonderbolts for who they were, but I don't know. I like characters and character development. That's my 2 cents on the episode in a nutshell.
If that was a nutshell, I'd hate to see a full course discussion.
Yeah, I could have rambled on earlier when we were all debating it, but we each have our own opinions on it. We all said our part, and make your own, everyone here make your own conclusions based on kind of all the evidence that myself and Matt and Mr. Matt, everyone, kind of presented in terms of our opinions on the episode.
It was a very interesting discussion, and indeed, given how infamous some people in the fandom complain about this episode, I felt like the discussion was a nice blend of both sides of both sides.
Yeah.
Of the situation.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for, because I was really interested to kind of see, because I know we've been talking about this episode for a while now, coming to it, and we all knew that Matt really didn't like this episode, and I've kind of made my point that I like this episode, because I was really interested in kind of seeing. We kind of stayed away from going into specifics because we don't want to derail other episodes. So I was interested. I'm glad he was able to make it, because I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to, because I wanted to hear kind of his side and why he hates it. Because I personally I don't understand how you could hate an episode like this, but yep, different people, different strokes for different folks, all that jazz. It doesn't have to be drama everywhere, fandom. Come on. Oh gosh. Nah, I just get triggered by video games, that's all. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining us for Rainbow Falls discussion. Hopefully we've been able to impart on how everyone here kind of feels about the episode and everyone's opinions, and I hope everyone got a chance to kind of say how they feel about the episode, because this is definitely one of the more divisive episodes. Even I'd say one that the episodes that leans more, sort of like how the Mysterious Mirror that kind of leans more towards people not liking it rather than liking it. So maybe we changed our mind, maybe we didn't, maybe we at least, one of us got to let you see the episode in a different light, whether that be a better light or a more negative light. It's just kind of us shooting the shit here. I'm sure you could perform a more thorough analysis than we have on it, but whatever. That's kind of why I like what we do here at Tripoli, because even more than just here in the call, just everyone in the chat, just please show us how you think, what you think about it. It's better than just listening to a single person ramble on about what they see, about what they think about an episode in the video, and then you can't counter anything during it or make counter arguments. So, gosh, what is next week's episode? I was so enthralled by this week's. I didn't even look.
Next week's episode is Three's a Crowd.
Oh, really? It's already? Oh, Discord time.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. And I forgot how heavy loaded this season's first half was on songs too. I got another song. Oh boy. Well, we'll have some fun with this episode. Next week's episode, I'm not really entirely sure how much we'll have to discuss. It's just kind of one of those fun episodes, and of course, it has a ton of Discord episodes, so there's a ton of references in it as well that we can point out. So we'll see what we can discuss with it. I might not be quite as long in the discussion end, but it'd be kind of cool to see. Be cool to see more of Discord after. I mean, this is really his first episode after his reformation, apart from obviously the two-parter premiere of this season. So this is like his first of his kind of Discord-focused episodes. So we've got a lot to talk about next week with that. So, and if you didn't see, we haven't had a This Week in Pony episode for a while. I'll look and see if we want to have one next week. There was some news that was released today. Zaptuit is and usually I'm pretty skeptical of things like this, but Zaptuit has been pretty accurate in the past in terms of the season premiering. Zaptuit does a list that season 7 is set to begin on April 15th, which is actually kind of exactly what we were talking about in the last This Week in Pony episode, where that was kind of like the prime key date that would be probably the best date to premiere it, because it's Easter weekend. The comic comes out, the tie-in comics comes out, comic series comes out that Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe, after that. So it just seems to be the point. And now Zaptuit is kind of agreeing with that and is listing the first 2 episodes as premiering on April 15th. No other information was released, no titles, no synopsises other than just the date. So if we don't discuss that, I mean, it's not really much to discuss with that because we don't know much more about the episodes, but we'll see. Keep an eye on the calendar as to when we'll be having the next This Week in Pony episode. Other than that, make sure to stop by this weekend. We'll be announcing our next CQ Riffs this Saturday, and that CQ Riffs episode 102, will be showing on the 18th of March. And of course, join us next Tuesday here, the 14th of March at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Remember, everyone, clocks change this weekend. So here in the U.S., we go on Sunday. We go forward an hour, so we lose an hour, unfortunately, which sucks. But that means
doesn't suck for me. Doesn't suck for me. Means I can walk around later or now.
So so if you live in a country with different times, that might not have daylight savings time, like we do here in the U.S., or change at a different time, like the UK changes at a slightly different time. Just make note of that for next week. Tripoli will be starting an hour. What would it be? Technically, an hour earlier. We lose an hour. We jump forward, so 2 would actually be. 3 would actually be 2. So you would get here an hour earlier, right? My brain's not working because we lose an hour. Yeah, whatever. Double check the time. We'll be changing all the times in the website, but just note there is a time change this weekend here in the U.S. So for next week, it'll be 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We will be having our Equine Episode Examination for Three's a Crowd. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us for today's episode. It's been really fun being able to discuss this episode with everyone, because I know we've been kind of building up to this discussion for a while. So anyway, thanks you all for joining us, and have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Later, folks.
See ya.